looking at what's beneficial, what's useful, and what does man determine is right and wrong, isn't it? That, if this thing is good for me, it apparently looks good for me, then I'm going to go for this. So from a scientific point of view, it's about enhancing life, or it's about solving a problem, or a curiosity or interest, something as simple as that. Whatever your heart desires, you go for it. From the religious point of view, it's all about the higher power. So this doesn't, what that higher power, demands or dictates doesn't necessarily always have some kind of obvious beneficial result to it. It does in the wider scheme of things, but in terms of the way we look at it directly, not always. And that's something that all kind of religions have. So if you look at stem cell research, this is something that's a very kind of current issue. The secularists basically see it from the point of view of developing life, saving people, saving these individuals who are going through such a difficult time. And even to make money, pharmaceutical companies, the private industry, it's about making money too. So there's a lot of different benefits going on. The people who come from a religious point of view, what are they saying? Protection of life. Essentially, stem cells come from embryos. So now it's a debate about where does life start. And, you can see that there's always going to be this friction. There's always going to be kind of a different way of looking at things. And, of course, there's always been this historical issue with the church and how it determines what's right and wrong. And,
that's absolutely true. I'm going to have to stop you there because we are actually going to go for a short break now. We have had a fantastic start to this discussion, and when we return, we will be further examining the contribution of Muslims to the field of science and what important lessons can we learn from this former glory. Stay right where you are. We'll be back in 3. Assalamu alaikum.
K Furniture sale is on now. Buy this pair of Shanghai recliner sofas for $899 and get this recliner chair free, absolutely free. Buy this tipped and extending glass dining table with 6 chairs, now only $399. Buy this Florence double bed frame with storage space, now only $179. Buy this Butler 4-door wardrobe, now only $299. Visit us in Cricklewood and Harrow, or order online at kfurniture.co.uk.
Tariq Halal's newly opened avant-garde Hounslow branch is now ready to serve you. For fantastic service and quality halal meat products, come and visit us at 9 High Street, Hounslow, and take advantage of our amazing offers on meat, poultry and game. Tariq Halal, a brand on its own.
Balam Mosque and the Ar-Risala Trust invite you once again to enjoy a wonderful day out at our annual Fun Day. There will be activities for all the family to enjoy, with wonderful fun fair rides, children's games, and a variety of food stalls. So don't miss out and join us at Orchard Playing Fields, William Booth Road, Crystal Palace. For further information or stall inquiries, please contact on 07967 808 216 or visit our website at balammosque.org. This advert is sponsored by Muslim Aid.
Join us at the Blessed Few Conference for an evening of high-end dining, inspirational talks and light entertainment with special guests Sheikh Zahir Mahmood, Sheikh Yunus Dudwala, Ustad Jalal Ibn Saeed and Preacher Moss. Saturday 17th of May at the Impressions Banqueting Suite, West Ham, London. Book your tickets now online at npiccevents.com.
It's a bit like a Muslim Glastonbury.
There's a huge number of reasons that people come. You know your kids are safe even if they're not with you. It's something for the whole family that touches not just the Muslim community, but also much wider. There's sports, there's music, there's entertainment, there's the serious talks, there's the discussions. You can go and just relax.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. We've had a very informative introduction to the topic of the history of Islam and science. And now we want to use this looking back as to the past as a means of looking forward, inshallah. So I'm going to come back to Zainab to finish what you were saying before the break about these ideas, these historical ideas, and are they still prevalent?
Yeah, so I gave an example of the current stem cell research, but if we look all the way back from the beginning of when this friction started to happen, it is definitely a historical issue that's never really been resolved, and it never will, because of the two different ways of viewing life, essentially. So that there's a really interesting example about Galileo and how he discovered, or he predicted, that the Earth revolves around the sun. Now, this is something that contradicted with the Church's view, and he was kind of hauled up in front of the court to basically withdraw his view and his statement.
For the reason that the Church believed that the sun revolved around the Earth.
Yeah, that's it, the opposite view. So it was, they felt that he was undermining the Bible. And I think what's interesting about this issue is that religions aren't really meant for wider life. It is a very personal and it's a very moral kind of issue. So that there are many religions, and whenever they start to have deeper, views on worldly life, then it doesn't tend to work out that well. But this is where Islam is different. Islam is not a religion. I know that sounds really odd, but it isn't. Yeah, it talks about the spiritual and personal elements of life, but it also talks about every other aspect of life. So it has actually more to do with, capitalism, communism, and all these other views. That it is for every aspect of life. And it does have this amazing tool, and not in a vague way, this amazing tool of ijtihad to be able to delve into the Quran and Sunnah, to be able to pull out new verdicts on new issues in an extraordinary way that, mashallah, we'll talk about more.
I think people find it quite surprising, actually, when you say, but Islam doesn't fall into the category of religion.
Yeah. So that doesn't make any sense.
You're going to have to clarify about that.
Yeah. So if we look at this issue, of looking back to the past, if we look back to the time of the Islamic governance, what were some of the scientific advancements that came from the Muslim community during this time?
SubhanAllah, I don't think we have enough time to even go through the amazing discoveries
that show in itself,
Muslims have contributed to under Islamic governance. Because there was a time which, Europe would have experienced that period they call the Dark Ages.
Yes.
So the Muslims at the period of enlightenment. That was a period of advancements. Muslims were advanced in scientific fields, literature, mathematics, astronomy, geography, humanity, so many things that the Muslims were just living the enlightened days. It was what we call the Dark Ages. Europe, that did not exist. It was actually, I don't think Muslims even comprehend that period to be the Dark Ages. And so let me give you some examples. We've got Jabir ibn Hayyan, who's referred to as the father of chemistry. And then we have Musa al-Khawarizmi, algorithm, that's between 770 and 840, who is known for mathematics, astronomy, geography, algebra, calculus. People Google it up if you want to know what that means, because it's too much to mention. We have al-Idrisi. He's known as Idrisis. The other thing is some of these names, actually, they've been a bit more Englishified, if that makes sense. So if you Google it up, you'll actually get the original name. So Al-Idrisi tends to be commonly known as Idrisis, who's known for geography, the world map, the first globe. He's from 1166. He's a well-known Muslim scholar. He served in the Sicilian courts. He's the first geographer to produce the accurate maps in colour. Then you have Ibn Rushd, who's also commonly known as Averroes. Averroes, that's how you pronounce it. He's known for philosophy, law, medicine, astronomy, theology. You have even Columbus. Some of the credit that is given to Columbus, actually you'll find that his ship was full of Muslim navigators, because Muslims were known for navigation.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because Islam has a lot of things in Islam, like Ramadan, fasting is based on the moon sightings, even directions. You look at the stars. A lot of that actually came from Muslims advancing it. We know things like paper was introduced to Europe from China. Coffee, you might not call it a scientific thing, but even coffee is like the most common thing that some people can't live without these days. Muslims introduced the first coffee shop in, I think it was in London, that is the Muslim. We had the first coffee shop. We have hospitals, universities. We'll go into more you know, in terms of relating to women, there are many women actually, you know, we talk about women not having any sort of place in the public sphere. Forget about public sphere, we've got women who've actually advanced in areas of hospitals and medicine. We'll come to it.
See, it's interesting when we talk about this period of enlightenment for Muslims. That's a really good point, isn't it? That we're not just talking about Muslim men, we are talking about Muslim men and women, and women made a lot of, you know, very prevalent and significant contributions as well, which we will be talking about soon, inshallah. Sister Zara. Walaikum salam. So Shahid has just mentioned some of the names of some Muslims and the contributions that they've made in the field of science in the past. So can you tell me, what is it about them that made these scientists that made them reach the intellectual and academic levels, you know, such heights that they did in their field?
Sure. Well, it's great to hear some of the things that Sister Shahina brought up. It's really aspirational for all of us. I think the reason for the greatness there were essentially two reasons. One of them has been touched on earlier, which is that unlike secularism, which essentially worships what is in the universe, worships what is material, and therefore all of its goals and its desires come from the material world, Islam worships what is outside the universe. It worships the creator of everything, and so the motivations and the aspirations are completely different. They almost have a higher purpose. So when we use the material world, it's for that higher purpose. However, that's true today as well. So, you know, our aspirations and our beliefs are still not what is within the universe, but outside it. So why don't we have the same success today? What's the difference? And that brings me on to the second reason. And I think the second reason is if you just imagine, for example, a student. Say you have a student that was really great at science in you know, secondary school, brilliant at it. Had, you know, a stable family home, you know, good surroundings, stability, good infrastructure in, you know, the way his routine was scheduled. And then suddenly he goes off to do his A-levels, he takes science, and he's terrible at it. You would have to diagnose the situation and say what happened. This person clearly had the capacity, the potential, and, you know, was obviously good at it once. What happened? And when we look around today, we see that we don't have the infrastructure that supports us when we need to strive. We don't have the resources. We don't have the access. We have too many social problems. And just to draw on one quote, which is actually by a non-Muslim, and I'd like to share it for illustrative purposes. So Adam Smith, some of you may recognize the name, the founding father of modern capitalism. He explained the impact of Islamic governance and how this gave rise to prosperous conditions for people to do well. And just a very quick quote, he said, it seems to have been, he's talking about the Islamic governance, he says it seems to have been the first state under which the world, not just the Muslims, the world enjoyed that degree of tranquility which the cultivation of the sciences requires. It was under the protection of those generous and magnificent princes, he's referring to the Muslim leaders, that tranquility which their mild, just and religious government diffused over their vast empire revived the curiosity of mankind to inquire into the connecting principles of nature. So we all know what the reason is that we don't have this kind of level of success and achievement.
Yeah, I think that's a really good quote that kind of illustrates the importance of surroundings and how this affects, you know, what we're achieving and what we're putting out there. And obviously, as Sarah's touched upon that, is there anything that you want to add to what's, you know, the downfall of the Muslims and our achievements, basically?
Absolutely. I think if we know our history, we'll understand why this happened. You know, it's very obvious that during this kind of, like the sister was saying, during the high times, you know, we understood our deen, we practiced our deen, and we understood it in this holistic way. And then when we dropped, it was when we started to involve other ways of life into our thinking, and we stopped using that mechanism of ijtihad to be able to deal with new issues, and that meant we kept, you know, borrowing from other cultures. And this is the thing about ways of life. You can't, you know, you can't mix and match. It doesn't work. It just leads to failure. So if anything, we need to go back to that complete understanding of Islam and go back to how Islam talks about all these different, you know,
I think it goes back to the point that Zara made at the very beginning of the show, isn't it? We're looking back to our history to emulate that again in our current situation.
What's the even current situation? Like historically, Muslims stopped doing ijtihad. What led to that? Led to people losing confidence in Islam, and we see that today as well in a lot of areas. we often, because Islam gets attacked so much, sometimes we find Muslims themselves who don't have confidence in Islam. And this is, I think this is something that should, give a glimpse of what living, just living according to Islam, the kind of advancement that it can give us, the places that it can take us.
Yeah.
But I think it comes back to going back to doing ijtihad and going back to having that confidence in Islam and referring to Islam.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, as Zainab said earlier, when we talk about ijtihad, we're talking about this process that scholars and learned people can use to go into the Quran and Sunnah to extract rulings about modern-day
even in the modern-day situations, that's stem cell research.
So, Sister Shahina, we mentioned earlier about some of the Muslim women and their achievements and their contributions. What can you tell us about that?
MashaAllah, we've got many. I don't know where they've been hiding all this time, this information. We have Zubaydah, who pioneered one of the most ambitious projects of digging wells and building service stations all along the pilgrimage route from Baghdad to Mecca. Yeah. I think that is still there. Then you have Sutaita, who was a mathematician and an expert witness in courts. We have Dhaifa Khatun, who excelled in management and statesmanship. And famously, Fatima Al-Fihri, who founded the Qarawiyyin Mosque and one of the first universities in Fez. We are talking about a Muslim woman back all those years ago under Islamic governance who actually established one of the institutions that people respect utmost most. You have Cambridge, Oxford. These are highly respected institutions.
And that model that she put in place all those years ago has been emulated, many, many times around the world and up until this day. Sister Zara, looking at some of these examples that we've talked about today and this idea of looking forward to recapture some of that former glory, how can we move forward as Muslims? What can we do?
Well, I think the reason we have great examples is because we had many examples. And what I mean by that is if you don't have a culture where, it is normal for people to aspire to be, doctors, scientists or whatever, you won't get the great examples. And one of the realities of our history, we do tend to look at the people who achieved greatness. But one thing that it's important to note is that it was just pretty normal in the culture for people to aspire to these things, especially as female doctors. It's like a part of our history to have, women who were just normal women, just, being doctors. They didn't have to be great or brilliant or fantastic at it, although some of them obviously were gifted enough to do some of the amazing things that we see, that Sister Shahina has just mentioned. And I think the way to get back to that is, again, to make it our culture, not just one person or a few people who we push to the greats, which is obviously good as well. But in order to facilitate that, we have to have the culture in of itself where not just, one or two women or one or two men, but generally as a society, we promote, the advancement of science and technology amongst us as though it's just normal. Because even in the past, when we read about some of these great women, we don't have accounts of people saying, oh my God, we had this woman doing this and I can't believe she was a woman and she did this. No, it was just normal.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. It should just be, someone did it. Oh, they happen to be a woman. And that's how it should be today. And inshallah, if we cultivate this amongst our sisters, our cousins, our daughters, our nieces, as something normal, not something fantastic and amazing, but something standard that we should be doing. I think that's the way to normalize it again.
Absolutely right. I think it's a really good point that you've made about kind of re-socializing ourselves to make this the norm. And, inshallah, that's a really good way to move forward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires us to think and constantly tells us that there are signs for those that reflect. And so searching for knowledge is important, but so is the intention with which we use to utilize this knowledge. In Surah Al-Baqarah, in Ayah 169, Allah the Almighty says, He grants wisdom to whom He pleases, and to whom He pleases is granted indeed receives a benefit overflowing. So let us strive hard to gain knowledge and wisdom to attain excellence and Allah's pleasure, inshallah. Jazakallah khair to the panel and in particular our special guest, Zara Faris. We're off to a quick break now, but do stay tuned, as after that we'll be discussing vitamin D deficiency. You've probably heard a lot about how this particularly affects Muslim women, but what are the facts and what can we do to protect ourselves? To find out, stay tuned and we'll take a look at this in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum.
Are you looking for a Sharia-compliant, tax-efficient way to save? Islamic Bank of Britain offers the UK's only Sharia-compliant cash ISA, helping you to benefit from tax-free savings whilst remaining true to Islamic principles. You can start saving from just £250 or transfer your existing cash ISA savings to benefit from a competitive rate of return. So you can look forward to a bright future for you and your family. Call us today or visit islamic-bank.com. Banking you can believe in.
Muslim Charity presents Supporting Our Sisters with Junaid Jamshed and Wasim Badami. This 7-city tour is part of Muslim Charity's Hazrat Khadija campaign, supporting and empowering women worldwide. The tour will visit Rochdale, Blackburn, London, Bristol, Birmingham, Dundee and Glasgow. Tickets include a 3-course meal. Book your tickets online by visiting supportingoursisters.co.uk or by calling the ticket hotline on 0207 100 4930. The Dawah Project is spreading the message of Islam through the media. Live Hajj coverage, live prayers and a variety of other religious and seasonal programming. To show your support, call our donation hotline on 0207 330 1744 and help us to educate millions across the world. Sadaqah and Zakah donations are also welcome. For more information on our charity, please log on to www.thedawahproject.com.
Did you know she was born into a crisis that has been ongoing for 65 years? One which saw 700,000 people removed from their homes and forced into refugee camps. Today, the situation has simply worsened, bringing with it a bleak future. What if you had the chance to help just one person? Wouldn't you take it?
One of Alia's most cherished dreams is to marry and see the world. One of Ali's most cherished dreams is to complete half of his deen, to marry and start a family. Everyone he knows, his parents, his aunts and uncles, have tried introducing him to the right woman. They all tried their best, but they couldn't find that special someone for Ali. That is, until he learned about IslamicMarriage.com. Soon after, Ali had found his other half. Create a free profile on IslamicMarriage.com. We'll help you find your perfect match.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, sisters. You're watching Women's AM. I'm Liz, and on the panel joining me today we have sisters Zainab and Shahina. Well, we had a really interesting chat before the break with Zara Faris about this issue of the history of Islam and science. So, Shahina, what are your take-home messages around this topic?
I just have these intriguing questions in my head because, like one of the things Zara Faris would said, this was very normal. Women being advanced in all areas under Islam is normal, and we get really shocked by it. So the thing is, there is a reason as to why we get so surprised, because although this is not new, it is sort of new to us because this information is just coming out. So my question is, where has it been all this time? I mean, you know, every time Islam is criticised and accused of being backwards, you know, treats women badly. So where are all those historians? Because historians would know this stuff. Why are they not invited into the medium and, you know, to discuss these issues and, you know, bring this history forward to us? Why is it that we've come across it now and not all this time? And especially, you know, under Muslims under governance that encourage and nurtures this kind of progress, we never knew about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's about educating ourselves about the history of the Muslims and the Muslim community, and that way that will give us some of the tools
it's just
to
very
move forward,
intriguing that this is just coming out now when we've always had all these knowledgeable people.
Absolutely. Jazakallah, sis. And Zainab, what about you? What's your take-home message?
Yeah, mashallah, I think you basically summed it up. That is going back to that history, but in a lot of depth. You know, I think if we understand kind of the phase from the time of the Prophet ﷺ all the way up to now, and really go into it in a lot of depth, we can see that it wasn't because we had money or education or any of those things. It's because we held on to Islam in its complete way. And we really need to shake off this kind of very deen dunya view towards Islam.
Absolutely.
You know, that it is one complete thing, and to kind of re-educate ourselves and go back to that as you know, a matter of priority, you know, if we really want to rise as
It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's our mantra for the show today, looking back as a way to look forward, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair, sisters.
I like sisters. Looking back to look forward.
Absolutely. Right up is our final segment of the show where we discuss vitamin D deficiency. In recent years, there have been a number of studies and subsequent articles on vitamin D deficiency in Muslim women who wear hijab. Why is this and what are the facts? So, sisters, what can you tell us, first of all, what is vitamin D deficiency?
Essentially, in terms of what vitamin D does for us, first of